Hello and welcome to In the Cantina, the pilot episode for Replace All Things Creative in Fandom. I am your host CJ, and today we're going to talk about all things writing and reading relationships in fanfiction. Before we start, I would like to recognise the traditional owners of the land that I am on as I record this podcast, the Darug and the Guringai peoples, and pay respect to their ancestors and elders past and present and emerging, and the lands of the traditional owners of where you are listening or reading this podcast today. My guests are two incredible creatives in the space of fanfiction and writing. I'm talking with Nixcomix Ellex on Twitter and Archive of Our Own. Known for her works The Redemption of Kylo Ren and Monarch, Nix and Elle boast a successful working relationship as alpha and beta readers. In this episode, we talk about the intricacies of their creative connection and how their friendship has impacted their writing. Hope you enjoy! Hi everyone, welcome to this wonderful chat with my two fabulous guests. My name is CJ and I am your host in the Cantina Podcast. Today I'm talking to two incredible human beings, Nix and Elle. I have them with me today. Nix and Elle, if you could both tell me a little bit about your working relationship and how you guys know each other.
Elle, you go first. I always say ladies first, and I count as pond scum, so you go first.
So hi, I'm Elle. I actually just joined the Raylo fandom online during the pandemic, because during the pandemic I was feeling kind of lonely. I was working and going to school, and without all the socialization that I normally get on my real life, I was like, well, I have this time. I'm kind of don't know what I'm doing. So I ended up joining this Discord server where there's other Raylo writers and people who, are generally creative. And I met Nix there. And she actually reached out to me. I have the message on my phone on June 16th this year. And since then, she's written 2 books that I've had the pleasure of beta reading for her. So, it was really great to work with her. I'm really glad that I found all these incredible people through the fandom.
That's amazing. So Nix, how much money did you pay Elle to say that in her opening line?
I feel like my money slipping out of my bank account, like just secretly. However, I'm terrified to know what that message says, but I'm imagining that there's probably a lot of help me's and hearts and weeping faces.
It starts, "Hey Elle, I enjoyed chatting with you a lot. Would you mind being a beta for me?" And then you went into like kind of about your the fic that you're working about. The fic you're working on, which was the redemption of Kylo Ren at that point. So it wasn't really embarrassing. It's fine.
Awesome. And Nix, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Nix. It's my screen name on Twitter and on AO3. It's actually my illustration company's name. So I've technically owned, quote unquote, that name since 2000. God, I'm so old. I actually, just like Elle, got into the fandom in the pandemic. Well, first of all, when Ben Solo died, and it enraged me to no end, I started off just by reading a whole bunch of fan fiction, and I was so amazed at the quality of work there was out there. I was like, some of these are better than real books that I've read, that I've spent hours reading, and people are just doing it for free out of love. And that fascinated me. Like, I was so inspired by that. And I actually hadn't done writing for a while. Once I had my son, I kind of moved out. I used to write and illustrate for comic books. I kind of moved out of that just to focus on raising my family. But in the pandemic, there was all this extra time, so at night, you don't do anything during the day. So then I'm like, I can't sleep at night. Let's spend from 11 o'clock at night till about 3 o'clock in the morning doing something else. I promised myself I would only write if I had an idea that I thought I hadn't seen before. And then when I did, I was writing it and I was posting twice a week. And every time I would post, I would look at it afterward and be like, look at all these grammatical errors. But I think at least 10 people might have looked at it already, maybe. So I would have like a little cry. And then in that Discord server, which is an incredibly supportive, wonderful place for all of us creators, there's writers, there's illustrators, for us all to kind of hang out together. People educated me on what a beta is. And when Elle and I started chatting, obviously I solicited her for her support. And I feel kind of bad because I was just like, oh, you're interested? I think you have to read like maybe 7 or 8 different like 5,000 word chapters that I already wrote before you actually start helping me where I am right now.
That's fair. I feel like that's fair. I mean, Elle's just like, yeah.
Yeah, it was actually, I jumped in the middle of the first, toward the beginning of the first book, fanfic book, that Nix was writing, but so my alpha reading didn't really come into play until the second book, but it's been really cool. I didn't mind doing it. I mean, I like the story a lot.
It helps a lot when you like really enjoy the story and you're like, I'm so into this, but then also it's like, I'm too into this. I'm no longer an impartial party. So how did you come to work together on a more one-on-one basis? You'd met, you'd kind of come together, you know, Elle was a fan of your work and you enjoyed sharing your content with Elle. How did that transform into a one-on-one secured alpha beta reader relationship?
I think it was probably just as let me explain something about Elle. Elle is number one, an incredibly kind, intelligent human being who is an amazing writer in her own respect. Like everyone needs to check out Elle's work. Link to her. But she's amazing, right? But she's also the kind of person who's like you need help. I will do everything I can to help you. I know I'm busy, but you know what? I'm going to stay up that extra hour at night because I love you. And that's how Elle is. So I have a feeling, and Elle, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that even if Elle had no desire whatsoever to do it, if I asked her nice enough, she probably would have done it anyway because she's just that person.
Honestly, I really love beta reading. I'm like very, I don't know, anal about the grammar and like about fics. I've read a lot in my time. I mean, I started reading at 11, which was illegal, but I read a lot. And in my reading, I just want to help authors kind of feel more confident in their work and stuff. So I've been beta reading for a while. Honestly, I probably would have beta read even if I didn't love it, but doing 2 chapters a week that were like over 5,000 words and with a lot of like original characters and a very intricate plot line, I don't know if I would have been able to keep up if I didn't love it so much, you know? So that does really play a part in it. I enjoyed the story and I thought, I mean, Nix is like such a good writer, but like one of the things that sets her apart is her world building and her ability to make you care about the characters and like make them put them in situations where they're both able to interact with each other in ways that are believable, but also help build your understanding of them. To be honest, I'm not usually a type of person who likes reading original characters, but Nix's fic really like changed that for me. I feel like it's a lot to keep track of, but when it's in such like a interesting plot line and like they all matter so much to the story itself, it becomes like a really rich piece of work in of itself, even outside of like the fanon.
Absolutely. And I think your point about Nix's ability to make you care about original characters. I know that in the beginning, I was a bit of a snob with reading my fic and be like, canon verse things only, established characters. But through reading Nix's content and other content as well, and I think also Thea, who wrote Landscape as well, has this really beautiful way of weaving understanding and empathy of these original characters, and it just feels like you care about them so much, and even times more than the established characters. You're like, I don't want to know about you, I want to know about this person. So yeah, I think that's a really beautiful way of kind of underlying your understanding and your investment in it as well. And you're right, reading 2 chapters of 5,000 words each, if you didn't love it, that would be a slight problem. Nix, what do you think?
Well, I definitely I think that though for me, like the fandom characters are the core, right? there are so many people in real life that influence your growth and decision making. If it was me and my husband and we were all that existed in a room together, there's only so much that we could achieve, like in our own personal growth and our own personal understanding of the world. And it's only by meeting other people, you know, and understanding that rainbow of what's possible, can you decide for yourself what you want to be more like, or what you don't want to be more like, and how you can help make that decision to shape yourself. You know, and so that's what I try to do when I write these original characters. And yes, I want them to be interesting. I don't want them just to serve a purpose for the main two characters. I want them to be characters you also care about. But I think that for me, writing a longer story, I needed to have that extra meat to play with. I've read beautiful, lovely fan fictions where somebody's in somebody else's room and is like a prisoner, but it goes enemies to lovers, right? And they're beautiful and moving. I just can't write that. I don't have the talent to write that and make it interesting. I would be like, they stared at each other and then they blinked. And then they looked at each other's lips and were like, no, I will look away. Can't do it.
So you've talked about how you met. You've talked about, you know, your, you know, equal and opposite, you know, relationship with each other. What's the creative process like? I want to know really kind of, where does that stop and start for the both of you? Where does one bleed into the other? Where does the narrative and the story carry further for you both in this working relationship?
So I think it comes into play on Monarch, which was the second book that Nix wrote, and it was kind of like the sequel to the redemption of Kylo Ren. So we already had like this established background story, things to jump off of, different character like development arcs, both canon and original. So that's really when we started planning as alpha. Started being like an alpha reader per se. And I think like, maybe Nix, if you can talk to the development of that book, as far as the creative process goes, it's probably like a more full story.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I think that I love Canonverse too, and AUs are amazing because in their own way, they're completely new literary works. You know, you imagine the characters in your mind because it's, you know, but even their personalities can be so vastly different. So, but looking at Canonverse, which is really where part of what I love about it is the divergence, right? But the hard part about Canonverse is there's only certain anchor points in the story where they can start. So the beginning of Canonverse is, you know, they're all starting in this similar place. And so in that way, it can be hard to read because you're reading this same beginning that then branches off in chapter 2 and does something else, right? But having the Canonverse movie anchor point already taken care of in the redemption of Kylo Ren, coming in from Monarch, it was really an open book, right? Anything and everything goes. And so, you know, I kind of come up with like a bulleted, like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think? What do you think of this? And I was like, Elle, you know, please, for the love of God, don't let me disappoint. And like, I'm just like, I've got 2 readers and I don't want them to be disappointed in me. Please make sure I'm not a disappointment. And Elle, bless her heart, she's like, it's fine. It's okay. But the best part about the way that I write is this concept of pantsing, which I'll always give our Discord channel like credit for. Writing by the seat of your pants is pantsing. And so when I write, I have these bulleted points I want to hit. But then in the middle of it, I can just kind of free flow. I can just let it go. And the good part about that is that sometimes I go someplace great. And then other times I'm like, God, what has happened? What just happened? What just happened? Elle, what have I just done? What have I done? And then she'll help me. Or towards the end of the story, the end, I had put like, and the bad guy gets what he deserves. but I didn't know what that meant. And I was like, that happens, weeks from now. I'll figure it out. And then I got to the point where I ain't figuring it out. Like, this ain't coming to me. So I was like, Elle, for the love of God, get on the phone with me. And we just had this awesome banter back and forth where, we were just throwing out ideas and spaghetti on a wall, see what sticks. And like by the end of the call, like my tears had subsided, the bile had drifted back down into my stomach where it belongs. And I was just so incredibly grateful, because I mean, I don't think I would have gotten there by myself. In fact, there's a bunch of different ideas in the end of this story that were actually just solidly Elle's ideas. And they were just so good. I had to put them in there. Like I said, she's a strong writer. Like, she's absolutely a strong writer, and she just hit the nail on the head. And a lot of people who commented after reading that part, people called out her part specifically. Like, I loved this part. So, wow. I mean, she really, like, by the end, it really became a collaboration. And it was very invigorating for me as a writer to have that relationship with you, Elle, and just like, to be corny, to know that I was not alone.
Oh, we had to put that in there somewhere.
I'm sorry.
I'm glad you did it, because if you didn't do it, I was going to have to do it. And it was like this weird, awkward back and forth. It's fine. I like how it went from, in both of your kind of answers there, you went from, she was an anchor point and a sounding board for ideas, and here's kind of the bare bones basic of what I have, to, it's a collaboration. I think to have that, and then not be like just this power dynamic of, I'm the author and I'm the writer, therefore my saying goes. I don't know how far you'd get with that with Elle. She looks like she could beat you up. But at the same time, I think it's like lovely to see that it's more of a collaboration rather than A to B and then B to A again. It's more of this beautiful working relationship. So thank you both. That's really wonderful answers. What do you enjoy most about working together?
I think that, it's really great to work with other authors, but it's even better to like work with friends. And over the past several months, like, I really feel like I've gotten very close to everyone who I've met through the Discords and had regular conversations with. And I mean, Nix and I will message about the fics definitely, or we'll message about like things that we read, or even just about regular, everyday life problems. Like, I'll complain to her about my work, my lack of work-life balance, and then she'll talk about like her family and the silly things that her child has done, on certain days to cheer me back up. So like, I think having that friendship and having like a genuine personal connection with someone is really important too, and really special for like working with them as well. One of the things about Nix is that she's really fast. Like, I don't know any other authors who write as fast as she does. She'll write like minimum of 10,000, probably like maximum of 20,000 words per week. And she would write that for me to, beta. And like, while it was a challenge to find time for it, it was also something that I like really cherished. And I loved doing that. And it's really a great, escape and just way to like both relax and do something that's for leisure, and also connect with Nix further and like spend time talking with my friend.
Would you say that the commitment that you have made to read her content and be her alpha and her beta reader has also allowed you time for yourself, for enjoyment and pleasure?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things about me is like, I'm very much, I guess, type A personality, and I always want to like plan ahead when it comes to my work. During the pandemic, I've had a hard time knowing when to shut off the work computer and when to like be like, okay, I'm logging out of work. I'm not checking any more emails today. I'm just gonna, enjoy my time, focus on fandom things that I like doing. And so knowing that like, hey, Nix has a chapter that's waiting for me to edit, and it's something that I want to do, but it's also something that I've like made a commitment to, is a good way to like make my brain flick the switch, into another mode.
Absolutely. And I think that, in light of the last 12 months for everybody, finding that non-existent work-life balance, especially when working situations and circumstances change, and where leisure and setting aside time for enjoyment and leisure kind of bleeds into other things, and when your self-esteem is attached to productivity, I think that's a really hard part of your brain to switch off. So thank you. I think that's a really lovely answer. And Nix, what did you think?
I was so embarrassed and happy and blushing at what Elle said. I completely forgot the question.
That's fine. What do you enjoy about working together?
It's funny because early on when Elle was betaing for me, she would find all of these grammatical mistakes, and I noticed over and over I was making the same mistake over and over and over and over and over and over again. And eventually I started self-correcting. And I was like, there's not much for me to change anymore. But that's kind of also the point in time when our dynamic started changing too, because then she had more influence into the story. But there's another great thing that ended up happening is that I write the story in Word, and then I would post it on my Google Doc we share, my Edit Me Google Doc. And I always say the phrase to Elle, chapter up. And I always know Elle is too busy to read it right when I yeet it. I put it up there with all intents and purposes of her being able to just read it right away. But then I look at it again and I'm like, well, let me look at this again with Elle eyes. And I'll fix it again, and I'll fix it again, and I'll fix it again. Because now my goal, my challenge is to make her not have to correct me at all and only comment on the story.
Oh.
I have not succeeded yet, but it is my goal.
You're really close. You're really close.
I was gonna say, has that happened yet? And Elle's like, you're close, and Nix is like, no, hasn't happened yet. I want to talk about it.
But it's funny. I did tell her I make this intentional mistake with the way I use quotations, and she was always correcting me. And I finally had to tell her, like, Elle, I'm doing this on purpose because I like the way it looks better.
And Elle's like, that is unacceptable.
I think she just let me get away with it because you have to pick your battles, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, Elle. Oh, honey. So not to start any drama or whatever, what frustrates you about the other or working together?
I gave you full permission. I gave you carte blanche. I will not cry.
I think it's been frustrating that Nix has been getting better at grammar, and so I've had less to do in terms of trying to find things to comment on, and then that makes me feel like I'm not doing a good enough job as a beta reader because I don't find as many errors to comment on. But it really just means that she's evolving a lot as a writer.
She's doing your job and putting you out of one at the same time.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes when I'm not commenting on a page, or even 2 pages, 3 pages in a row, I'm like, oh no, I have to go find something now because there's nothing obvious to comment on. So I have been commenting more on the story, on the plot lines. Honestly, it's been a really good working relationship. I think we understand each other pretty well from a person to person standpoint, and that's a really good place to start when you're going into a working relationship. I think, the periods in the outside of the quotation marks, it's a little painful to look at when I'm so used to correcting it on my own writing. But I've learned, to be more accepting of the intentional grammatical error.
That's so funny. You're just like, this doesn't look right. And Nix is like, that's too bad. Nix, what's something that frustrates you about working with your alpha beta reader?
This is going to seem like such a cop-out, but it is actually something that really stresses me out because, Elle and I are on the same Discord channel, and we have channels for venting, and we vent to each other anyway as just friends. And I know Elle is always working so hard, and she's like, oh, I wish I had time to write, but I have all these responsibilities. And she'll put a checklist, these are the things I have to do today. And then there's laundry, vacuuming, beta Nix's fic. I'm just like, I wish you had time to write for yourself. I'm so sorry. And so I have a little bit of like this guilt complex. Like every time I've written something new, like when I was going to start writing Monarch, I was like, Elle, do you still want to beta for me? Because it's absolutely okay if you don't want to do it anymore. And she's so kind. She's like, yes. And now like, there's like I refuse to call it like a sequel to my sequel. I'm writing like little fluff stories. And I was the same thing. I was like, yeah, it's a spinoff. I was like, Elle, do you want to beta this? Because you absolutely don't have to do it. Like,
That's
I want to
so funny.
give her like an out, because like I understand that a lot of writers are like, I'm going to put out a really like strong chapter, like one every 2 weeks or one every month. And I'm just like, mediocre once a week.
Okay, but that I wouldn't log off of work without that. Like, I would just like, I wouldn't spend the extra time that I had on, on writing my own fics or on editing my fics, which I probably should do more often. But I would rather just like, I would spend it staring at a wall or, staring at my work computer. It's not like time that I waste. I feel productive when I beta.
But I think that's the cool thing though, is that like it still kind of comes down to productivity, and I know, Nix, that you feel this inherited guilt of putting your thing on someone else, but then also it could do more for Elle to have that time set aside to do something that makes her happy. And I think, we all I know me personally, if I'm reading this amazing fic that someone wanted me to beta or alpha read, I'd be like, other responsibilities? Pfft, we don't know her. I'm going to do what I want to do, and it's read your fic. So that's great. What are some unexpected benefits of working together that you both didn't anticipate when you started this working relationship?
Yeah, so I mean, I've beta read for other people before. It's always kind of been more of a very focused type of working relationship. I feel like they'll send me a fic or a chapter and I'll read it, I'll give my comments, I'll be like, oh, my comments are up, check them out. If you want to, you can accept them. If you don't like them, no worries, like as always. But we won't really like talk about much outside the fic. We won't really talk much about my comments on it. But I noticed like pretty quick off the bat that Nix and my working relationship was different than that, because when I would like make a comment on the fic, she wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm going to think about this and decide if I want to change it or not. She'd like make a comment to my comment and like we'd have a whole conversation about it. And then we started, like having more conversations about other fics or about, my fics even. She became kind of like an unexpected sounding board for a lot of my brainstorming. I do a lot of brainstorming and not a lot of writing.
Relatable.
So, yeah, but it's been really nice to have like someone to talk to about that type of stuff, to talk to about fandom stuff. I don't really have that many like in-person connections who are involved in fandom, let alone no one in the Raylo fandom, I think. So being able to like make that connection, especially during, the pandemic times, is really important to me.
Absolutely. That's so lovely that like you found like this connection in a time when, it was really important. And I think everyone was going through a similar thing. And Nix, what are some unexpected benefits for working with you?
So I was afraid a little bit because, there's a lot of self-esteem wrapped up when you do anything creative. I think when you do anything, there's a lot of, self-esteem, but you talked also about how productivity equates to self-esteem. So when I was in the Discord channel, somebody offered to beta, and I write in a very specific style. Coming from comic book writing, it's very staccato. You know what I mean? Like it's very focused on the immediate action. I don't have a lot of like, I'm going to spend a paragraph telling you about the beauty of the sky. I just don't write like that. And, if something booms, I write it in capital letters. But this wonderful person who's an amazing human being spent time on my work, and she ripped it to shreds. Like every way that I wrote was just wrong to her. I mean, it's just that our styles didn't mesh. But I was afraid that that's what betaing really was. And then I took it on myself and I was like, well, this means that I'm not a strong enough writer yet. All of this criticism I have earned because I'm not there yet. And so then that goes back to the productivity, like, oh, all this time I wrote, like, was, spending on this is wasted because it's all trash. But then I realized in working with Elle that certain betas just pair better with certain writers, right?
Absolutely.
There are certain people, there are certain people who would never read Stephen King because he's over verbose. I love him even though he's over verbose. And some people would just, that's what they need. They'd never read Chuck Palahniuk. Palahniuk? I'm not sure how you say it. But because his stuff is so brief, there is no extra word in one of his books. Everyone is intentional. So I needed to kind of appreciate that instead of just all the self-hate and negative stuff. And being able to work with Elle and seeing that I absolutely still need to make tweaks. In fact, like, having that relationship does make me a better writer and does help me notice when I'm not saying something as clearly as I need to be, or something could be phrased better. So she does drive me to be a better writer.
What you said, Nix, before about your work being totally ripped to shreds, I think if you as a creative have asked for that level of veracity, then that's fine, because that's what you're after. But if you want a kind of a bit more of a gentle springboard, then you're getting back your beautiful piece of work that you put together and it's ripped apart with red underlined and everything. Like, it's unfortunate that you have to go through that, like, rite of passage as a creative to find out that that person or that pairing doesn't suit you. And I think kind of just from talking to you both, and Nix being such a lover and a fan of your work, it's very clear that the relationship is working. I think that there's a beautiful marriage of creatives, and I think the fact that you're both writers is such an amazing thing, because you can clearly see in the work that that's the eventuality of this relationship. It's not someone who is a casual reader who you don't have a friendship with outside. And I think that's what I'm seeing here, is that you guys are friends. You talk about things that aren't fic or aren't fandom. Nix, you make Elle laugh with things about what your son did that day. And, Elle, you can have your brainstorms and your lists and things like that. I think that it's transcended more than just a transactional thing. And I don't mean financially, I mean just A to B, one way. And, Elle, as you said before, you've been a beta reader before. You know what that's like. You've submitted things and said, if you don't like it, that's fine, move on, what have you. But it sounds like you've got more of a collaborative working relationship than you kind of just pitching something into the void and hoping that it sticks. And I can see, and again, the work speaks for itself. The work is superior when it works. And then one final question that I have for you both, which is a bit of a curveball. If you could take one item of fandom, it can be any fandom that exists, so a lightsaber hilt, the one true ring from Lord of the Rings, whatever it would be, to a desert island to have with you, what would it be and why?
I guess my answer, okay, so I've always really wanted to have, like, BB-8, like a BB-8 for myself. I love him so dearly. He's a great robot. So I'm a mechanical engineer, and one of the things that I did growing up was I was on a robotics team. We built, like, these big metal robots, and they played sports together. And so seeing BB-8, I was like, oh, like, maybe one day if I get good enough at this, I'll be able to build my own BB-8, or have someone build it for me, or with me. And I think, like, overall, staying within the Reylo, like, my current dedication to Reylo and my interest in, like, in general, the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, he just seems like a really both a good companion, but also, like, a very useful one. Like, he has a lot of tools inside of him. He has a lot of functionalities, and I feel like that would be, like, very important if I'm on my own on an island.
That's an incredible answer. Me, I'd be thinking of something completely useless and not at all essential to my physical survival, but that's a fantastic answer. I love that. Nix, what's your answer?
I was also thinking of something completely useless. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know whether it counts as fandom, but I'm going to count it because I'm going to count it. So I worked collaboratively in an anthology for Jim Henson's Fraggle Rock. And I got to do a lot of signings at Comic-Con with the other people who were in the anthology together. And they were such amazing writers and artists and people. And Carla, what is this podcast rated?
E for explicit, honey.
All right. So being at Comic-Con, drinks were had, hilarity ensued. For me, going from one time zone to the other, I was 3 hours ahead. So they're 1 o'clock in the morning. I should have been awake already. So like my brain was off. We drew a lot of pictures of like Moki and bras with like signs on her that said like $5 hooker. Like I got pictures of Moki and Gobo making out.
Oh my God.
Like I've got all of these like pictures based on other people's ideas. Some people drew them, I drew them, and they're hilarious. And I don't know if it counts as fandom because we were technically working for that, but I mean, it's not, for me, I would take my dirty Fraggle Rock pictures and remember when there were humans and I wasn't on a deserted island.
I love that answer so much, and I think it just speaks to the personalities of you both, is that they were completely different answers. I love that. Well, thank you both so much for your time today. It was a joy and delight to talk to the both of you. Both Nix and Elle's handles will be in the description of this podcast. Thank you all so much for stopping by the Cantina, and we'll see you all next time.